Welcome back to another High Vibe Conversation. I'm your host, 𝗍𝗶𝗆. With me today are Stina Marie, Linda Vetrus-Nichols, Jenny Langren, and our special guest, Miriam Zylberglait. You can also call her affectionately Dr. Z. And we are so happy to have you join us today to talk about social courage. So why don't we jump right in? Introduce yourself, tell us a little about the work that you do, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Thank you so much for having me. I have been watching your show for so long that it's kind of interesting and amazing to be here with all of you. So I am a Latin girl. I'm from Peru. I went to medical school there, and after working for 10 years, I met the love of my life, and I traveled from Lima, Peru to Miami, Florida. I got married, and I started from zero again around almost 40 years old. This happened again 11 years ago, 10 years ago. So here I am a physician. I have three specialties: internal medicine, geriatrics, and obesity medicine. And besides being a physician, I decided during COVID to explore my role as an advocate, as a well-being advocate, and that took me to the adventure of writing a book. And so now I am a bestseller author, which is kind of an yes, it's kind of an interesting achievement for me. But probably from all the things that I mentioned, the ones that make me feel more proud about are not the ones that are related to my profession, but I am the mom of two amazing boys, Ellie and Ari, and I have a wonderful husband, Alex, that is supporting me through all my craziness, and a beautiful family that is cheering me up. So those and great friends. So that's probably what makes me more proud and makes me feel much better about life.
Well, we're so excited to have you join us here today to talk more about some of these things. First off, congratulations on the release of your book. We haven't done it in a while, so I'm going to drop some confetti to celebrate.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, this just officially came out, right? I know you've been teasing it for a while now. I did purchase it last week in support. And as I'm reading through it more and more, I know other people are going to love it and enjoy it as well. So the 3G cycle, talk to us a little bit about that.
So I have been always kind of described as resilient, very resilient. I go through things and I bounce back very easily. I have no clue how. Really, it's kind of magical. It surprised me too. And every time that someone will ask me, especially my mentees or my students, it will be like, no, well, this happens. It's like, it's not so difficult. We go through life and this happens. But during COVID, I believe that leaving this to just luck and this will happen when we were struggling so badly, especially when I was struggling so badly, it was not good enough. I needed to understand where this magic is coming from, not only to make sure that I will be okay, and my family will be okay, but those that were under my care, patients and mentees, students, will be able to replicate that in some way. So I started to try to find out, okay, how do I do this? How I replicate this magic effect, but with intention. I need to be okay. I need to do more than surviving. And I started exploring this and trying to learn a little more about the topic. And part of my discovery journey involved getting a certification as a mental health ally. So I was able to understand a little more about mental health in general. And then I thought that I needed to start being an advocate for wellness for those around me. And I entered a training to be a physician wellness advocate. What I didn't know during this, trainings and this process is that I will discover that I was not as resilient as I thought that I am, that I was not so strong as I thought, and that many of the things that I was doing were external, and that I was struggling like many others, and that I was actually going through burnout without even knowing. And this was a very, very challenging moment in my life. And pushed me even harder, right, to keep going with what right now is the 3G cycle. And to answer directly to your question, the 3G cycle is my way to survive, and not only survive, but to keep going in life and in a successful way. And what I discover is that every time that I start a cycle in my life, I start with a goal. I need to have a clear goal. I need to know what I am doing and why I am doing it and where I am supposed to be going. So that gives me this idea that, okay, this is what I need to do. I can elaborate a plan. And that's the first G of the 3G cycle, to set a goal. The second G is really the grit, this energy that I need to keep inside of me, this fuel that I use to keep going through the cycle. And sometimes it comes from me, but sometimes comes from others. People that inspires you, people that becomes your mentors, your cheerleaders, and that are helping you to keep going, even the days that you feel like, oh my gosh, what I am doing with my life. And Linda, you know that I have those days for sure. And then in theory, you should be closing the cycle with the third G that will be goal, because you achieve your goal. But the truth is that we don't achieve our goals all the time. There are many times that not only that we don't achieve it, but we don't care about those goals anymore. I wanted that red Ferrari when I was 17 years old. I thought that was super cool for me. And this is just an example. I didn't think about the red Ferrari, but anyway. And then when you are 40 and you have kids, I need to drive my van like a soccer mom that I am right now, because that is my new upgraded goal. So the red Ferrari means zero now. And nothing wrong about changing goals, right? Or sometimes you really want something and you really try, and at the first attempt or at the second attempt, you don't have the skills yet. And you learn in the process. And at the third time, it's like, yay, I did it. So you not always get your goals done, but you will always grow. And that's the third G. Grow. You will learn, you will develop new skills, you will reconsider, and you will set the same goal, or you will change the goal, and until you close the cycle and you start one cycle again.
Wow. So yeah, just wow. So this really ties into today's topic, social courage. And as you mentioned, you've gone through several, in fact, 3 major transformations in your life. Do you feel like this 3G cycle helped propel you through each of those transformations? How does that affect your social courage, do you think?
So I'm not sure if I knew that this 3G cycle was helping me. Now in retrospective, I can tell that yes, because what I noticed during COVID and beyond COVID, during very difficult times, is that is my social resilience, keep me alert and oriented. It is not something necessarily purely emotional or physical. Is the idea that I have clear values and clear goals, a clear message to follow or to share, and that when I compromise my moral, or my ethics, I feel so uncomfortable that I need to go back and, to where I started. So my moral resilience is what keeps me in the right track, and probably that has been my goal number 1 in life, to be and no matter what I am doing, right, or where I want to go, but I want to make sure that everything that I do is at the same in the same direction and is connected to my core values and my principles.
I think that's so telling of the person that you are and how you relate to the world. And I love the word resilience that you use there, kind of in combination with courage, because it's what drives you and like makes sure that you're going at a sustainable pace for you. So I think we can all shed some light on social courage today and what that means for us. I'm gonna go backwards today around the circle. Linda, I'm coming to you. What's coming up for you when we talk about social courage?
For me, social courage was getting divorced and stepping out of a more Christian community. And it took being around a different type of community for me to really tap into who I am, what's really happening for me via my marriage, and where it was that I was getting hurt and not doing a good job of, and I at the time didn't even realize later, didn't even love myself, which that's not a real great foundation for any relationship, including yourself. So for me, definitely that whole process was part of social courage. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I could so relate to not loving yourself. Right? I have a whole book about it. But for me, social courage meant tapping into who I wanted to be and not really letting the naysayers change my opinions and beliefs about myself, and really leaning into what it was that I wanted to do, who I wanted to be, how I wanted to show up, which is something that I'm still working on and continue to work on as I grow and change and lean into more and more of the things that I want to do. So I can really relate to you, Linda, when you're talking about how you had to navigate the world when you weren't fully believing in yourself and what getting out of that marriage and other situations really looked like for you and how you changed that for yourself. I also know that Stina and Jenny can so relate to these conversations too. Jenny, I'm coming to you. What's coming up for you when we talk about social courage?
Well, I love that Miriam is bringing up core values, because I work so much with my clients around their core values. And a word that comes in for me is integrity. To me, social courage is knowing myself, knowing my core values, knowing what's a yes for me, what's a no for me, like Stina teaches, to be able to create a life that is in integrity and in alignment with who I am. And that takes courage, because I am different from everyone around me. Mm-hmm. And in sessions with clients, so often I meet them at the stage where you were at, Miriam, and where I have also been, when you are burning out. And often they feel like they are falling apart. They are breaking down. And I love that I get to be there with them and let them know that they're not breaking down. They're breaking through. They're not falling apart. They're falling in place, because they get to shed the layers and, of the ideals that the world placed on them, the stories of others that they thought were their own, to really rediscover who they are. And there's so much peace and joy, like you say, Miriam, coming from that place. And I know, looking back at burnouts that I've been through, it's in transitions and transformations, that they have been so hard, so many lessons, so much coming back to accepting what is and opening up to the lessons to grow through. And they've been blessings in my life. And I would not have thought it at the moment, but I get to be there and be that hope for my clients as they are walking through that. So I'm so glad to hear your stories of transformation, Miriam. Thank you for joining us today.
Alignment. I love that word too, Jenny, that you brought up, and how it relates to the core values of who we are, and how we interact with the world. And I think that's a great piggyback off of what Miriam was sharing, with how she builds this social resilience to keep continuing in the world. Stina, I'm coming over to you. What's coming up for you when we talk about social courage?
I definitely resonated with Linda's the courage of coming out of a Christian community. I had this experience where I thought I was an introvert, like a hardcore introvert for years of my life, because I would just get so drained by spending time with people. And as I came out of this community that I was a part of, or church that I was a part of, I came to the realization that I was just spending time with very draining people for me, and that I was not actually as much of an introvert as I thought I was. I was just really didn't want to spend time with those people. And I think that it's just worth noting that, because sometimes the way that we understand ourselves is because of the people that we surround ourselves with, or just are surrounded with by default. Because in the Midwest, it's also a little bit challenging to find your people when you're not a part of a church or an established, religious community. Finding those like artsy communities for me, and people that are into comedy and theater and do really interesting things. It's a little bit harder. Like, you have to like find a place to kind of get your foot in the door with somebody, because they're tucked away a little more. And I'm seeing those communities grow in my area, which is really exciting, because I think it just gives everybody more opportunities to connect on different levels and to see each other as more like full humans. But along that line, I was thinking about social courage as kind of coming out of people pleasing, and what people pleasing does and codependency does, or did for me, was because when you're in codependency and people pleasing, you're always doing things out of obligation, right? It's just, I should do this. And so then you do it, and it doesn't feel good. It creates resentment, it creates bitterness, it's draining. Again, like, your energy is just sapped, because you're not saying, like you were saying, Jenny, it's not a yes for you. It's just I should for you. And what that also means is that then when someone else does something for you, you feel and believe and think they must be doing it out of obligation for me. So it not only twists the way that you respond to other people, but your perception of the way that people respond to you. So it's taken a long time for me, specifically in my like romantic relationship and a partnership, where I can consistently see and build evidence and gather this story, a new story that says, I can ask for things, and if he says yes, it means he wants to do it. It means that it's not tinged with bitterness and resentment. It means that he's doing it of his own free will. And then carrying that over into my other interactions, to the point now where I'm not afraid to ask, because it's not my job to police your yes or no. If someone says yes, I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to go with, they said yes, and we're going to proceed. Or they said no, and I, act accordingly. You do whatever I need to do in response to that. But it's like such a kind of subtle and very like insidious thing to be going around thinking that everybody is they're only responding to your text because they have to. They're only calling you because they feel like they have to. They're only going out with you because they feel like they are, somehow it's their duty, which like none of that makes very logical sense. But codependency and people pleasing really just doesn't, period. It's a twisted story. And when you start to come out of it and you get that social courage to where now you can ask for things just because you want to, it doesn't have to be a need. It doesn't have to be, you're burning out and breaking down and now I'll finally ask for help. It can just be simple things out of a place of like, it would be really nice if someone would fill my water glass. Like that would just feel nice to me. And you can just ask for those small things. And it does take a lot of courage though to turn that corner, because when you're in that for so long, it's scary and it feels a little wobbly. You're like, is it real? Do they, you have this time of questioning, but you practice it enough times, you gather enough data, and then it kind of becomes, at least I have these conversations with myself where it's like, I'm pretty sure that this has happened enough times now that like we can drop the old story, because it's kind of dumb to keep believing that you don't have any evidence for it. There's nothing in reality that supports this old story. It's like majority evidence is now leaning towards there's a new like freedom, and that your courage will be rewarded, and that it's a positive thing to do. So those are my thoughts on social courage.
What you just said about being rewarded. What's coming up for me as I hear you say that is that the reward is just something that like naturally happens now, because you're putting yourself in those social situations and surrounding yourself with people that don't drain you and that make you feel good. And it's not like an external reward necessarily that you're seeking from somebody else. You're giving that, you're creating that for yourself in those situations, which I think can be really difficult for people sometimes if you're not used to showing up that way. And as you mentioned earlier, with releasing the people-pleasing tendencies and the codependency, having that expectation of, if I do this, I will be rewarded with this. And if I do this for this person, then they're going to expect something in return, or like vice versa, or like it's so tit for tat almost, that if that's all you don't know any other cycle. So hearing us share how we break through those cycles is really powerful. And hopefully we're leaving other people in a better place than when they came to this conversation, because now they might be aware of something that they didn't know before, or they're seeing something from a different lens and can invest more time in themselves and test the waters there to see what really lands and works for them. So thank you, Stina, for sharing your insights on social courage. Miriam, I see you glowing and smiling here as we've all shared. Is there anything you'd like to add to what everybody has said today?
Yes, I would like to add a different perspective of social courage, which for me is very important. There is our own social courage, what we do to feel comfortable in society, to feel that we belong instead of just fitting, right? Which is probably what we were talking about. But I feel like there is a second level that is our responsibility to also to advocate for others, to don't be bystanders. To be able to push our core values, not only to make life easier or better for us, but to continue to that next level. That means that we will do this also for others, and that we will not accept things to happen in front of us with us doing this, closing our eyes and shutting our mouths. And I feel like in times like this, where we see people suffering around the world, where we see the high rates of burnout, mental health conditions, suicide, abuse in many levels, we are seeing so many individuals being now without a job because of the changes on several industries. we should not ignore that. We should not ignore the suffering of others. We need to start with ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves, our close ones, right? Our loved ones. But don't ignore others, because sometimes just a small act of kindness, like a smile and a hello, or how can I help you, could change the day of someone and could open the doors for someone. Connecting people. And there's like now when you don't know if that connection will be opening the door for someone to find a job, for example, raising your voice and your opinions when you see that someone is being abused or discriminated, you can really make a change. We don't need to be on leadership positions and have badges or earn a lot of money or drive the Ferrari to have power. We have the power inside of ourselves. Our power is given by our voice, our thoughts, our decisions, and we should not wait for someone in a higher administrative position to dictate the type of life that we will have, or the type of life that those that we can affect and that are around us will have. We need to start being proactive, and we need to start being remove ourselves from a victim position and start to be those that drive our own life and that write our own future and the future of those that we can touch, with our heart and with our ideals. So that will be my second level of social courage.
Thank you for adding another dimension to the conversation today. What's coming up for me as you talk about advocating for others after you've first advocated for yourself. Oftentimes when I'm in New York City and I'm riding the subway, there's posters and announcements all over the stations that are like, if you see something, say something. And I grew up with these. I saw them all over the place. And it's something that, like, if you see it so often, you almost kind of disregard it. But to your point of not sweeping it under the rug, once you have advocated for yourself and you know that there is a better way, now it's your social responsibility to help advocate for others, to bring things to light and not stay silent when you see something else happening. So I was just remembering how often I had come in contact with some of those some of those posters and signs, and like listening to the announcements. And I can recall sometimes in my life previously where I did advocate for others, in even if that meant putting myself in danger. But to your point about advocating for yourself first, I think it's important to note that, like, how I could have done that differently in those situations would be to make sure that I am safe first and foremost, and then see what I could do. And there have been times as well where I've been proactive to make sure I stay out of danger, even when I'm advocating and making sure that other people are okay. And I think there's a lesson there that other people can do these, and they don't need to be grand gestures either. You can do them in small amounts and in whatever level of comfort you feel okay with. But the important thing is to start. So I love that you added that second dimension to it.
We live in a society and we need each other. You cannot raise yourself and leave everybody else, on the bottom, because that's not how life works. You need the system to work, and for that you need each of us to be well, so we can be working as a society. If not, we will have to, I don't know where the food will come, who will be your doctor, who will teach your kids. It's impossible. We need to make sure that we heal together, and we go to a better place together.
Yeah. And it's also important to not assume, right, that it's somebody else's responsibility, that it's somebody else's role or job to do that thing. We might see it, and often I've heard people say, and I've probably done it, recently as well, of like, oh, well, that's that person's job. I'm not gonna insert myself into that. And I think there's a fine line too of, well, how much am I willing to insert myself, again, to stay safe and make sure that I'm good, but still take any necessary steps that can help advocate for other people. And too often I see and hear people where they don't want to step in and insert themselves, or they just assume, again, that somebody else is going to do it and take care of that, when then if everybody's thinking that, nothing happens and it just perpetuates itself. So that's really a danger of not being socially courageous and not stepping in or stepping up for someone else who might need it. So I think that's a really important point that you've made. And I just want to reiterate that for anyone else who might be listening and going through something like that or noticing it around them. Wow. We've covered so much with social courage today, and I know we could just go on about this for many, many more hours to come. We might have to do so on a future conversation. Miriam, it's been a pleasure having you with us today. Again, I want to congratulate you on the launch of your new book, The 3G Cycle. If you have not grabbed your copy of this, please go out and get it. It's on Amazon. It's on Kindle, right? People can get the e-copy of it as well.
Kindle for now. In 3 more weeks, supposedly 3-4 more weeks, we will have the hard copy. So yes, coming.
Awesome. And for anybody who wants to connect with you or get to know more about you and your work, where can they find you?
LinkedIn, Dr. C, that's how they can find me. And please, if you do so, text me, connect with me, talk to me. I would love to, make more friends and more connections, and learn more from others too.
I love it. I love it. And to that point, if you want more high vibes, we're here for you across multiple platforms to catch up on previous conversations, chat with us directly, and follow along for more. Connect with us as well, because we love having these conversations. We'd love to continue these conversations about any of the topics that we've covered, or if there's something in particular that we haven't yet discussed and you want to hear about it, let us know, because we are open for that too. So make sure to check us out across multiple platforms, LinkedIn especially. And until next week, we will say bye for now. Thanks for watching.